So we're going to begin to talk about the place of the shaman in society and historically. And I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that what makes shamanism such an unusual profession, for want of a better word, is the fact that there have been shamans in all cultures and in all societies, and there still are. There is not a single culture on this planet that doesn't have some history of shamanism. You can go anywhere you like, from the Arctic through to the desert regions, and you will find a history, a culture, a tradition of shamans, which shows what an important role they've played. Okay, so how old is shamanism? Good question. When I was trained, I was told that one should regard shamanism to have a history of approximately 40,000 years. So that puts things in perspective. If you look at the world religions, the Hindu religion seems to go back one of the furthest, and that's about 28,000 years. And shamanism is going way beyond that, so it goes back beyond all the known religions on the planet at the moment. So that's a very, very long time ago indeed. So in some cultures, shamans will be primarily male. In other cultures, they will be exclusively female. There will be some cultures where it wouldn't matter what gender the person was. It would simply be the qualities that the person exhibits. And their status varies enormously from culture to culture. I'll give an example. In Korea, the majority of shamans are women, and their status is very low. Some cultures treat shamans much the same as you treat garbage disposal operatives or refuse collectors. In other societies, they can be accorded amongst the highest status, and you can find that the chief of the tribe will defer to them in making all decisions. So their role varies enormously, not just historically, but even in the present day situation. So if you were to go back to any traditional society, what you would find is that there would be some structure of authority, which could be a tribal chieftain or maybe a tribal council, and then you would have the shaman. And one of the things that distinguishes the shaman from the other people in that particular society is their sense of otherness. They tend to be different. They tend to feel they don't fit in. And in fact, the way that a shaman is chosen historically and even currently is a very interesting story in its own right. Because for a person to become a shaman, they have to be chosen, and they get chosen by circumstances. And the kind of circumstances that you require to be chosen to be a shaman is you need to experience great suffering, awful illness, either acute or chronic illness, or some experience of severe ostracism, or being treated very badly. These are the normal criteria you would expect to find for a person to be selected as a shaman. And there are many stories in a particularly wonderful book, which is written by Stanislav and Christina Groff, and it's called Spiritual Emergencies. I so recommend this book if you're interested in this subject, because there are many stories in this book of shamans and how they got chosen. A really good way to understand this is severe illness. Supposing someone suffers a really severe illness with a high fever. So illnesses and certain kind of drugs puts a person into a state where they're really outside of ordinary reality. They're not really tuned into the third stroke fourth dimensional worlds anymore, and they're lying down. They may be lying down for days, maybe even weeks, possibly even months. So they're not functioning in the conventional manner at all, and that enables all their spiritual senses to start to open up. They then get these experiences, and what's been the tradition is it's been something that's been passed on through the generations. So traditionally, if someone showed these signs of being chosen to be a shaman, there would always be a living shaman in that community who would say, aha, I know what's going on. They would then take the time, and when that child or person was too ill to do anything other than just lie there and maybe see visions, they would spend a lot of time sitting with that person, and they would get into the non-ordinary state with them, and they'd go off on journeys together. And that way you can imagine this budding shaman would have the most excellent training. They would go on many, many journeys while that person was in a delirious, fever-ridden state, and by the time the person actually became cured of that illness, they would have had, most of the training would have been completed. They would have so much background, so much understanding, just from having spent all that time with the shaman that had been teaching them. So the question you might ask is, okay, so why do all shamans have to go through 7 grades of hell to become chosen? What's all that about? It's a very simple answer, which is it's the suffering And it doesn't really matter so much what the suffering is, but it's the actual act of suffering that is the best preparation. Let's look at it this way. The shaman is going to be a healer, the shaman is going to be a guide, someone that people are going to go to. Now if that shaman has had a privileged life of luxury and ease, when the clients come to them, they're going to be in the world of arrogance, and they're going to think, that silly person, what are they whining about, what are they moaning about, what's the big deal, just because they've got some pain in their leg, or just because they lost their wife and 2 children, what's the big deal about that? And if the person hadn't gone through such horrendous experiences, that might be the situation. And of course, as a result, they'd be useless as a shaman. So this is the reason why you will find all shamans will have experienced a really good heavy dose of suffering. It's the suffering that gives them the ability to empathise, and it's the empathy that's a prime quality they require. And that's going to put them in just the right frame of mind and the right frame of heart to be able to do good work for that person. So that's really what that's about. So it's very much not a matter of I want to be a shaman. It doesn't really work like that. It's more like you get chosen by circumstances. That's the way it's been historically. And today, with everything being different, we have courses and we can go and train. And it usually costs a lot of money to train, and that's another form of initiation. That's really the word I haven't used, so I need to bring the word out very clearly. For someone to become a shaman, they have to go through what's a powerful initiation. And all these things I've been discussing, illness, accident, ostracism, bullying, rejection, these are the hallmarks of an initiation, because it takes you outside of the norm, outside of the standard life that the people are living in your culture and society. And that forces you to explore other worlds, and it's the exploration of the other worlds that gives you the ability to meet your guides. Once you've got your guides and you've got some training, then you know what to do, and off you go. And like many shamans, my training began in my childhood, and I experienced a really wide gamut of extreme suffering. I experienced sexual abuse, I was tortured systematically over a period of time. I was forced to take part in satanic sexual magic practices by dark magicians. The kind of experiences that make most people's flesh crawl. These are the experiences I've had. And it sounds like a strange thing to say, I'm actually eternally grateful for those experiences, because I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that those are the experiences that qualify me to do the work that I can do. It doesn't mean to say that I can tackle anything and everything, and believe me, I have been faced with clients who have had utterly indescribable experiences, some in this lifetime, some in other lifetimes. It doesn't really matter whether they happen in this lifetime or other lifetimes, actually, not when it comes down to it. So my general feeling for you to be aware of is that part of being a human being is suffering. And yes, it's very difficult, but we do get gold as a result of these experiences. And if we're able to move out of the hatred and out of the judgment against those people that did those things to us, and move into a realm of acceptance, then we can start to turn those horrors into gifts, and those gifts into real talents, and those talents into treasures.